talking about how to make our students ready to read. But let's start with using literary text in ESL classes. The types of literary text that we can use with our students. Also use the song lyrics or the plays as well. Dramas, yes, definitely, yes. Okay, but the question now is, why should we use literary texts in our classes? The first one is that it promotes multisensorial experiences. Texts are often engage multiple senses through vivid descriptions, and it allows students to visualize and hear and even feel the story. Also, literary texts are a very good source of linguistic input, like all you said. So it gives students a very good exposure for a wide range of vocab, sentence structure, and writing styles. We can also think of literary text as exposure to other cultures, like what you said. So literary text from different cultures offers students window into diverse perspective, tradition, and values, promoting cultural understanding and fostering empathy towards others. Also, it raises the awareness of difference. Literary texts always help students explore themes of diversity, identity, social issues, and it also helps students develop a deeper understanding of different perspectives and experiences. But the point now is, do you think we should ask our students to read in class or at home? Do you think it's practical if you are teaching a lengthy literary text or a novella or a novel or a drama and you're teaching a 45 to 90-minute class? Do you think it's practical to read with the students in the class? Fine. So most of you agree that we should not read with them in class. But the point is, how many times have you asked your students to read 1 or 2 chapters at home or 1 or 2 pages of your lengthy literary text at home? But the point is that they don't read. They don't read. They tell you, okay, fine, we'll go read, but they come to class and they don't read. And you find yourself, you end up reading each and every word with them in the class. Has this ever happened to you? So the point now is that we really need our students to read. We need to prepare them to read. But how can we do that? The golden rule is that we need to use some curiosity sparking tools which help us raise students' expectations so that reading becomes a positive experience. But again, how can we do this? How can you really push the students to read? How can you give them the push they need to read? So the golden key would be in the pre-reading activities. And I'll show you a couple of pre-reading activities that might help you with your students. We first need to introduce the topic. We need to introduce the story or the topic or whatever the text is. You can use pictures, maps, for example, maps that shows the setting of the story, a short video, or realia. Realia means like if there is, for example, anything from the story, it can be maybe like the coffee press, and ask the students, what do you think the coffee press's role in the story? Anything in the story that you can bring to the class and ask the students about it, and then ask them to read to know if their guess is correct. But be aware that you should not be saying too much, because if, for example, your short video tells the story, this means that they're not going to read. So it's very important that you don't say too much in the pre-reading stage. So one activity would be guess the story, where you show the students the cover of the story or some pictures from the story and ask them to write a short paragraph without reading. No reading now. You just show them the visuals, or you show them some pictures of the story and ask them to guess what the story is about, or summarize what the story might be about. And after that, you challenge them and make it like a competition of who can tell what the story is about. So in class, you show them the visuals. They together try to guess what the story is about, summarize or write a short paragraph about what the story is about. Then they go home and then they read to see if their prediction is right or no. And after that, when they come back to the class, you give them feedback on what they're doing. So that could be one of the ideas. Another thing would be remake a book cover. You predict the story from the title and ask students to draw another cover that reflects the story. And after drawing this, you hang all of their drawings on the class walls and ask them to go home to read. And then when they come back to the class, they choose the closest one to the story and keep them hung on the walls. That would be very motivating for the students. They really like it. Also, you can do the dramatic monologue. And this is one of the things that I really love. So choose a very important monologue if you have, especially for dramas. Choose a very important monologue, script it and act it out to your students, and try to be over dramatic. Use sound effects, use lots of descriptions, and ask them to guess whether the character is a victim or a victimizer. And then they go home and they read to have a full picture of what's happening. Another idea would be meet and greet with the main characters. You find few quotations rich in characterization in the story and ask students to think of what they can infer about the character based on these small snippets of the text. And after that, you challenge them and make it like a competition of who can get to know the characters best. Okay. Another one would be if you are teaching a novel, so you can give the students, that's called jumbled chapter titles. So you give them the chapter titles and you ask them to put them in order. After that, you keep this also hung in the walls and they go home and read to see which one is closest to what they guess. So all of these are ideas for the pre-reading, and here you really prepare them well to go and read. They will have a clear purpose why they would go and read. You raise their curiosity. But also the while reading stage is very important. Your while reading question must have a clear purpose. You must give them clear question, and the question should not be too difficult or way too easy, because if they're too difficult, they would be demotivated. And if they're too easy, they won't even read. And your question, when you design the questions must help students gather and organize information to promote better understanding of the text. So that could be some WH questions. What other questions can we have for while reading? We can have true, false questions. Describe the settings. Excellent. Yes, no. Very good. Organize the events of the story. Yes. Pronoun reference is nice also. Fill in the gaps and choosing the correct answers. But the content of these questions, be aware that the content of these questions must promote better understanding of the story. Who is the narrator? That's a nice one. Okay. Also, we can give them some quotations from the story and ask them to comment on these quotations. What do you think of? Definitely yes. True, false questions. Excellent. That's a very nice one, Erica. So what the feeling is the author trying to provoke and why? And this is a very detailed question. So they need to read thoroughly so that they can answer this question. Good. MCQs. Nice. Do you think about their opinion? Okay. So let's talk about critical thinking and opinion questions. Do you think the post-reading activities are as important as the while reading and the pre-reading? Do you think so? Why do you think they are important? The post-reading activities. So critical thinking and a chance to personalize. If there is a chance to do so, please do. Yes. Consolidation. Okay. That's a very good point. It's a reflection on what they've read, because in real life, we always read, digest what we read, and then we reflect on what we read in a way or another. Yeah. They reflect on the text. Yes. Relating it to the real world, yeah, and their own experience. To ensure their understanding of the text. That's a good one. And also you can do this in the while reading, sort of. Also promotes creativity, right? Doesn't it? We give students space to reflect on what they read. Maybe each phrase works together. Yeah. reasons, opinions, any examples or any specific questions that you ask your students in the post-reading activities? What do you usually ask your students after they read? What are your post-reading? Change the ending. Yes. Change the ending is a very... What would you do if you were in the if you were in their shoes, or if you were in the same situation? This one also promotes creativity and critical thinking. Different endings, yes. What would happen if? Sometimes the author tries to victimize. What was your favorite part? Yeah, that's also a good one. So sometimes the author tries to victimize a specific character, and you can ask students whether they think that this character is a victim or a victimizer. Character's reaction in some situations. Thank you so much, Sora. Evidence of X from the text is a nice while reading task. That's a very good while reading task. Wow, this one is also nice. You can ask them to change the characters if they are fiction, if they are fictional, into modern ones, especially with kids. Your favorite character and why? Write a journal. Nice. Journal entry. Yes, Erica's idea is also very engaging. Okay. Well, so modern twist for the story is also very good. So the post-reading activity the post-reading tasks must focus on themes analysis, and you need to make sure that there's kind of critical thinking questions where students can do some inferencing and express their viewpoints. So why do you think when we give our students a chance to express their own viewpoint or reflect on what they read helps them? How do you think this helps students when you ask them to express their opinion? Creativity and innovation. It promotes speaking and writing from one aspect. Yeah, definitely. Yes, it does. Also language. Yeah. Chance to develop arguments. Yeah. Self-awareness also, because it gives them a chance to think. Imagination connects learning to real life. Yes. So that's the end of the webinar. And to summarize what we've talked about, so before you send students home and ask them to read, you need to make sure that they are ready to read. So you can use any of the pre-reading activities that we have discussed in the webinar. And don't forget to make sure when you introduce the topic not to say too much about the topic in the class, or not to bring a video that says everything about the story, because this might demotivate them to read. And make sure when you set the while reading task is questions that are not too easy and not too difficult. And never forget the post-reading part, because it's also very important.